righty. Welcome in all. Welcome in. Get settled. I am Kamalia Blunt, Program Coordinator of the Women Veteran Entrepreneurs of Color Initiative at EDAC of the Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. And I hope you all are safe, healthy, and somewhat sane for this Tuesday. And I also hope you have not given up on your New Year's resolutions, because I know for certain that I think I have. Breaking a world record at this point. Now, the name of the game that we are playing today is called Webinar, and its title is International Expansion Made Easy, Unveiling Strategies and Resources for Small Business Owners. And the lineup that we have today is off the charts. So let's meet them, shall we? First, we have Michael Jackson, not the he, MJ, but Michael K. Jackson of the International Trade Administration and U.S. Commercial Service. He will be functioning as our amazing topic host as I fade into the background and monitor the chat and the slide decks. Following Michael, we have Jonathan Brady, Lead Business Development Specialist of the Export-Import Bank of the United States. And I think your title has changed, John, so I apologize for that. Feel free to correct me every time. I'll be humble. Trust me, I get it wrong every time.
No worries.
And next, after Mr. Brady, we have Vashti Pyatt. Yes, winning. Business Development Specialist and Women Business Representative at the SBA's Baltimore District Office. And last, but certainly not least, we have Brian Castleberry, Senior Regional Manager, Middle East, Africa, and UK founder at the Maryland Department of Commerce. And if you are not from Maryland, fret not, because these good people and the EDAC WVE initiative are committed to the growth of all small businesses near, far, wherever you are, and have connections, which is why a survey will be sent out shortly after this webinar and during this webinar posted in the chat so we can connect with you and get you what you need beyond this webinar today. Now, down to business. This is being recorded. And the slides on here, they will all be available within the next 2 weeks, and an email will be sent out. So if you want that email and you want this content and the recording, please fill out that survey and I'll put it in the chat right after I'm done with the intros. So that way we can get your email and get you this content. And well, Q&A will also be at the end. And so that way we know who to direct your question to. Please put the name and the initials, well, you have to put the initial name and or initials of the speaker that you would like to address that question of yours, and then put your question. So for example, on the screen, Kamalia, which is me. What is a fun fact about yourself? And just for funsies, Kamalia is years old and she still doesn't know how to ride a bike. I have no shame in that. Well, maybe a little bit. Now, let's get this show on the road. And Michael, you have the floor. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you all for joining us this morning. As was said, I am Michael K. Jackson, the other Michael Jackson, that is. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. First and foremost, I want to thank the EDAC WVE for hosting this webinar and for partnering with us at the U.S. Commercial Service. Today, as Kamalia mentioned, we have a jam-packed webinar for you this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever you're watching this or listening to this. And I am the International Trade Specialist at the U.S. Commercial Services office in Baltimore, Maryland. Today, I'll be just providing you a brief overview of the U.S. Commercial Service, who we are, and how we can assist you, and also how we work with these other wonderful individuals on the webinar this morning. Kamalia, next slide, please. Before I go into the U.S. Commercial Service, though, I want to just touch on why exports matter. I'm sure you kind of have an idea or at least a slight interest, or else you wouldn't be here. But I want to just mention this stat to you, that more than 70% of the world's purchasing power is actually outside of the United States. You may or may not have known that before. So competitors all around the globe, your competitors are increasing their market share by exporting while the U.S. is underperforming. Hence, part of our mission is to help you grow by going global. Next slide, please. And just as an illustration, so the U.S.'s GDP, or 11% is what represents exports in terms of the U.S. percentage of U.S. GDP. As you can see, other countries around the world they're basically eating our lunch. So we want you to be competitive globally so that on a macro level, we can grow that number. And on a micro level, you can grow your business as well. So it's a win-win for us all. Next slide. And if you're not convinced, companies that export grow faster. All the research shows this. And this is more important, are less likely to go out of business. So you should be exporting if you're not already. All right, about the U.S. Commercial Service. So we are the export promotion arm of the U.S. Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration. We represent a global network of international trade specialists like myself. Domestically, we have over 100 offices here in the U.S. As I mentioned earlier, I represent the Baltimore, Maryland office, which covers the state of Maryland. And again, we have over 100 offices domestically, just in case you're outside of Maryland. And then that's mirrored by specialists that reside in 80 plus countries overseas, typically in US embassies and consulates. And we work hand in hand with those individuals to serve you. In terms of services, our services fall into a number of different buckets. I'll hone in on a few, but broadly speaking, we provide export counseling. So we come alongside you no matter where you are in your business cycle and your export cycle and provide assistance. We always say that we don't have all the answers, but we know who to connect you with to get those answers. And some of those individuals are actually on this webinar today. Market intelligence. So, we provide tons of market intelligence in terms of how you can investigate not only markets overseas, but companies as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that and a service or two that we have in that respect. Business matchmaking, quite honestly, is our bread and butter. We exist basically to connect you with potential buyers, partners overseas. Depending on your business model, that may be an agent or a distributor or some other form of partnership. We connect you with those. So we say we connect you with opportunities overseas. And then commercial diplomacy. So if you are, number one, bidding on a foreign government contract, for example, we can kind of come alongside you and advocate for you in those situations where you're competing against foreign companies bidding on a foreign government project. I know many of you, some of you on this webinar might be pursuing U.S. federal government contracting. You may even have a contract with U.S. federal government. If that's the case, then you are even better positioned to pursue government contracts overseas. But the commercial diplomacy does not involve pursuing government contracts. If you are doing business globally and come across any impediments to your exporting, we as the government can again advocate on your behalf and straighten things out. For example, if you had issues at a port or issues receiving monetary payment from a government client, just to give you an example. Molly, next slide. And this is just a graphical depiction of our, the global nature of our workforce. So if you look at the United States, all the blue dots represent our U.S. domestic offices. The red dots represent our foreign offices. Like I mentioned, roughly 80 of them around the globe. And then the purple represent those posts that that we partner with the U.S. State Department on to deliver our services. So as you can see, we got you covered globally, quite literally. Next slide. And I just want to, our services are extensive, too much to cover in 10 minutes I have today, but I just wanted to, kind of illuminate a couple of the different services that we have to assist you, particularly in finding qualified buyers and partners overseas. Our initial market check. So that's one of our market research tools where we can go out, or my counterparts overseas can go out and kind of test the market for interest in your product or service. And then once that interest is established, and you say, well, okay, there's enough interest in that particular market for me to go further, then one route you can go is, for example, to do an international partner search that basically involves us finding up to 5 qualified partners for you. We pre-arrange meetings virtually, not unlike what we're doing here on this webinar, but via Microsoft Teams, and connect you with those partners. If you so desire to actually go to that market to meet personally, then we have the Gold Key service where, again, we find up to 5 qualified partners, pre-qualified partners for you, set up those meetings in country, oftentimes it's at or near the embassy or the consulate, and you have those meetings. Just to paint you a scenario, say if you went on a Gold Key mission, mission or service, and you found a great potential partner, you can take advantage of the international company profile, which is basically a background check on a specific company that can either be a simple background check or something more in-depth. And then lastly, if you so desire to actually go to the country to advertise your services, you can do a host a presentation, for example, or a seminar. That's something that our colleagues overseas can actually set up. Oftentimes it can be a luncheon or a dinner at the embassies, for example. So we have a wide range of services, all for the purpose of connecting you with potential buyers overseas. I mentioned that was our kind of function, our main function, our flagship, our program was connecting you to buyers. That's what we do. So that's just some of our services in a nutshell. Next slide, Amalia, please. And don't take my word for it. Here are a couple of quotes. I won't read you all of them for the sake of time, but a couple of quotes from our trusted customers. I'll read one. This one says, "It feels like I have a whole team of support." Because oftentimes, one of the impediments to going global is, oh, I'm too small, or I don't have the the capacity or the heft to actually go after international business. But you have the entire U.S. government behind you. You will hear soon from a couple of my colleagues that can assist you in different ways to get overseas. But notice one thing, you're not alone in pursuing international business opportunities. You have a whole host of resources available to you. Next slide. And lastly, speaking about those resources, you'll hear from a couple of these resources here in a second. We work very closely with the Export-Import Bank, so you'll hear from Jonathan in a second. We work very closely with the SBA in terms of supporting your exports. You will hear from Vashti in a second. And we work very closely here in Maryland with the state of Maryland. And we have my good friend Brian Casper, who's going to come and talk to you about some benefits that the state of Maryland has to help you export. And last but not least, the Maryland SBDC is a great partner of ours for those companies. You might be just starting out and just need some training, some counseling to get you started. We work heavily with the Maryland SBDC. And just to note that, all of these resources are mirrored throughout the country as well. I'm talking about Maryland because I'm based here in Maryland, but these same resources exist throughout the country. And then we have partners that are too many to mention, i.e. like the EDAC WVE that we have the pleasure of partnering with here in the state of Maryland. So without further ado, I think I might have went over time maybe by a minute. I'm going to turn it back over to Kamalia to introduce Jonathan.
All righty. Awesome. You didn't go over, but your content's so valuable that we can forgive you. Big hugs over here. All right. As we mentioned before, everyone, Q&A will be at the end. Remember, whoever you're going to address that question to, please put their name or their initials and the question that you would like to have answered, and we should be good to go. Aha. All right, let me bring up. Boom. Can everybody see that? Can everybody see this sexy slide deck that Jonathan brought? Maybe I should.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, we are good to go. Jonathan.
Okay, thanks, Kamalia. And thanks to Michael, great foundation for today's webinar. Um, Once again, I'm Jonathan Brady with the Export-Import Bank of the United States, also known as XM, XM for short. Today, I want to build on the theme and talk to you about solutions to support your international expansion and the tools and resources and programs we have for U.S. exporters and export transactions. Next slide, please. So who we are. XM is a federal government agency. We do serve as the Export Credit Agency of the United States. We were established in the 1930s. In fact, 90 years ago. We're celebrating our birthday this month, February 2nd. So we'll be marking the occasion throughout the year, but it is our birthday month. Headquartered in Washington, D.C., and we're supported by 12 regional offices throughout the United States. And our mission, simply put, XM's mission is to create and sustain jobs by increasing U.S. export sales. Next slide. So small business focus, I do want to emphasize, I had time to give you these updates for FY23, and I'm pleased to share with you, if you look at the statistic in the green box, 87.1% in FY 2023, small business transactions made up slightly more than 87% of the bank's portfolio. And I know that may be difficult to believe because you typically hear about the large dollar transactions or support given to larger corporations, such as the Fortune 500 companies, but actually it's the small businesses that benefit the most. So I'm pleased to share this information with you. You can see the number of small business transactions for the year or authorizations and the impact that we're making. So we work with small, medium, and large, but small businesses do benefit from our support. Next slide, please. Now, I am a member of the Minority and Women-Owned Business Outreach Group, or MWOB for short, and we're essentially a team of trade finance specialists and export counselors who work with minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, and the community, business community serving disabled business owners. So what we are here to do is to serve the audiences listed here in the middle, as you can see, and ensure an equitable distribution of services to the underserved or underutilized business community. And you can see on the left that we do a lot of outreach and education events, such as today's webinar, and our impact on minority and women-owned businesses, $349 million in support of minority and women-owned businesses in FY23. Next slide, please. Now, ways that we can help. Here we have 3 traditional products or programs. Number one is essentially the export credit insurance. Improve your competitiveness by insuring your receivables from international sales. That's export credit insurance. Number two, assist in obtaining pre-export working capital financing. So this is a loan guarantee program. XM Bank provides a loan guarantee to the lender, to your bank, in order to assist you if you're seeking an export working capital loan to, let's say, purchase the products you need to manufacture. You may need to get components and parts, or you may be purchasing the products that you plan to export already finished. So number two is export working capital. And number three is essentially buyer financing, support capital equipment exports with term loans for international buyers. And number three is buyer or term financing, and it's for medium and long-term transactions. So this, I like to call this slide XM Bank in 100 words or less. It's the basics, our traditional programs. Today, in the interest of time, I'll do a deeper dive on number one, which is the export credit insurance. Next slide, please. This is another way to look at financing solutions. Trade finance solutions fall either on the pre-export end of the spectrum, pre-export financing, as you can see, and post-export financing. So working capital loans are pre-export because you need access to funds to fulfill orders. And then on the post-exporting side, we have the export credit insurance, which I mentioned earlier. And in cases to support medium and long-term transactions, loan guarantees, and direct loans. Next slide, please. So let's turn our attention to export credit insurance. This is probably what we're best known for at the Export Credit Agency of the United States. Basically, the export credit insurance removes the risk associated with exporting. It protects you if your customer doesn't pay because of commercial or political risk. Next slide. So the benefits, we mentioned the first one. Risk protection is risk mitigation, protects against buyer non-payment due to commercial and political risk, as I said. Now, another feature of export credit insurance, the policy is also considered a bargaining or sales tool because you can offer credit in the form of open account terms to your buyers. This benefits you as well as your buyer because you're not requiring cash in advance. You can move from cash in advance to credit terms. In these circumstances, your customer may increase their order with you, knowing that you're not expecting payment for 30, 45, 60, or even 90 days, whatever terms you agree to. Now, the third bullet is an interesting one. The policy is also a financing aid or financing tool because the insured foreign receivables may be added to your borrowing base, providing you with access to financing. EXIM's insurance enhances the quality of your firm's balance sheet, and your foreign receivables become insured, allowing your company to borrow against those receivables. In other words, giving you access to an advance from a lender, essentially a short-term financing facility tied to your insured receivables. Next slide, please. So keep in mind, I mentioned this before, the export credit insurance protects you if your customer doesn't pay because of two kinds of risks, as you can see, commercial risk and political risk. Some examples to share with you. If your buyer loses his or her import license, commits fraud, on the political side, civil unrest, or an outbreak of war in your target market, the destination country. These are just a few examples of situations in which you're covered should they occur. Next slide. Now, you may be curious to find out, what are the qualifications? Well, we do have the U.S. content rule. Products shipped from the U.S. with more than 50% U.S. content. This is a requirement at Ex-Im Bank. It's the U.S. content rule. We are seeking, in most cases, a 3-year operating history, but there is some flexibility, I should add, because it's determined on a case-by-case basis. So if you have at least 1 to 2 years of experience, our underwriters at Ex-Im Bank are willing to look at the merits of the case and determine other factors that may contribute to your background and experience. So 1 to 2 years minimum, 3 years would be the ideal. Also, a positive net worth. We do request your Dun & Bradstreet information, a DUNS number, and then finally, at the bottom of the slide, you can see something relatively new is the unique entity identifier, and that's called the UEI, which is available through SAM.gov. So you can do the registration process and learn more about it. SAM is System for Award Management. So that's a new requirement. If you're seeking financial assistance, not only from Ex-Im, but other federal agencies, you'll need to have your unique entity identifier, or UEI. Next slide, please. And then a tool for exporters I want to share with you. This is very helpful. And at Ex-Im, we call it the country limitation schedule. Essentially, we're open for cover, as you can see here, in over 180 countries. However, I do like to advise listeners, our audience members, and the new clients at Ex-Im to view this country limitation schedule when you start to explore exporting, to see whether we're open, that is, providing coverage in that country of interest, and for how long, and whether it's a public sector transaction or private sector. So you can see it's easy to sort through the countries that are in alphabetical order, and then you can determine whether we're open for cover for short-term transactions. That's up to 1 year. And that's usually applicable to your export credit insurance policy and export working capital. They fall in the short term, up to 1 year transactions. And then we also list whether or not we're open for medium and long-term transactions. So that information is available and is easy to see in table format. And then we also recommend you read the notes section because there may be some further requirements or restrictions for that country in question. So that's the country limitation schedule, and highly recommended even before you start negotiating with foreign buyers. Next slide, please. Okay, I've reached the end. Those are the basics. You have my contact information here. We do recommend, if you'd like to learn more, we can do a deeper dive on the export working capital and buyer financing. Those were the other two programs on that slide earlier in my presentation. So let me know. Visit the MWOB landing page. We have a short form you can fill out there if you want to schedule a consultation. Happy to set that up. So thank you for your attention today.
Last but not least, certainly, we have Mr. Brian Castleberry with the State of Maryland, Maryland Department of Commerce. That's come and talk about the wonderful program, some opportunities available to you as specifically as a Maryland exporter. Brian, over to you, sir.
So, Michael, what are you saying? You're coming for my job at the state next? Is that what you're saying?
I think you're safe, Brian. You're safe. You may come for mine though at some point.
Great to be with everybody. Just fantastic resources. I'm glad to be here with this team. Want to mention, if you get a hold of one of us, you get a hold of all of us. In Maryland, we have a great, partnership with the feds, so we work well together for you. So I don't know if I can see my slides. Let me see. I'm on my phone, guys. I'm sorry.
Kamali, can you go to Brian's slide if you have it?
I don't have those slides, Brian, but I can give you control if you like.
You're on mute, Brian. Brian, you're on mute.
Bear with us, everyone. Technology tends to hate me, so I don't blame Brian at all.
Here we go.
I don't need the PowerPoint, guys. It'll take me, 5 minutes. It's actually better. But so Maryland, look, we have the best companies, we think, in Maryland in a lot of different industries, bio, health, cyber, defense. We've got great technologies. We want to get that out into the marketplace. We do that mainly through our foreign offices. So like Michael, we've got foreign offices as well that are contracted by the state of Maryland. So Europe is one office in China that covers Japan and Korea. We have an office in Australia and India. I cover the UK, Africa, and office in Dubai. And all these offices have a good team of networks that has a good outreach. So for example, my office in South Africa covers all of sub-Saharan Africa. So we really do have kind of a foothold in a ton of different markets. So when you come to me, we first decide whether or not exporting makes sense. Do you have sales here? Are you export ready? Have you worked with, the team that you see here? If so, great. We will turn you on to one of our offices and they can do a market assessment report for you, let you know who your competition is, what trade shows are out there, yada, yada, yada. If you already know your market and you want to go into it, say, Brian, I think my product, Michael and I have been working and, the UAE looks like a great market. We can do a distributor search, partner search for you, customer search. So really try and line you up with the agents in there that can help you get into that country. So that's our foreign offices. You get 2 work orders per year that are free. So, you come to us and you want to go into the UAE and you want to go into Canada. We can do that. We pay for it. You don't. We also reimburse Michael's Gold Key. So you can get 2 of those. And Michael, what do they run? About 900? 1,000?
You're on mute, Michael.
Oh, so now I'm the one with the mute issue. About Gold Key's about $950, Brian.
All right, so we'll reimburse 700 of that, and you get 2 of those. So between Michael and I, you can tackle 4 different markets and really understand them, or get distribution, research, customer search every year. So that's our main program. It's just using our phenomenal team abroad. And when you meet with me and Michael's team, they're stronger in some markets, we're stronger in other markets. So we'll decide which of our which one's best to use, and then we'll go from there. And then when you're ready, our main goal is to get you into that market. So we do trade shows every year. I just got back from Arab Health in Dubai. It was probably one of the biggest trade shows I've ever been to. We took 9 Maryland companies to that trade show. While they were there, we set their B2B meetings. I won't tell you the company's name, but they do. They help build labs. They just at the show won a $200,000 contract in the UAE, and they're now about to close another one in Saudi Arabia. So, just great story, hot market. It was a win. The way they got there is something called the export grant. Okay, so the export grant, it's a travel grant. It's up to $5,000. Okay, it's 2/3 up to $5,000. So, to send the companies for their hotel, their airfare, we can cover 2/3 of that. So most of the companies that were coming to me, the Arab Health, they were coming in about the $6,000 mark. We cut a check. They get reimbursed. They come back. They send us their airfare receipts, their hotel receipts, marketing costs, and we'll cut them a check for 2/3 of that. So they got $4,000 back. So essentially to go to the second biggest healthcare show in the world, biggest in the Middle East, we incentivize them, $4,000. So it's a great deal. The Export Maryland grant, it's on our website. Sorry, I don't have it here, but email me and I'll send you, information on it, or call me and we'll see if it's ready to use. There's a timing issue with that. So we like to have, 3 months, 2 at the least, to get you, your application in and then ready for approval. And the approval process takes about a month. So we do get a lot of these grants from, somebody who, it's like, hey man, I want to sell seashells in Jamaica. He's clearly using the grant for vacation. So we have a team of professionals that look through the grant, make sure it's on the up and up. But if you're going to a trade show, you'll usually be able to get to the grant. And again, at those trade shows, our offices can help set B2Bs there, your B2Bs there. So again, that in a nutshell is it. Just want to reiterate, if you reach one of us, you reach all of us. And, we think you guys have some great technology, great services, and want to get it out there, and we're here to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah.
Now is your time, audience, to just put your questions in the chat. Direct your questions to any one of us, and we're here to answer your questions. Kamalia, while they are thinking about the questions they're going to ask, I just want to reiterate something that Brian said in terms of, you reach one of us, you reach all. Particularly here in the state of Maryland, we all work together hand in hand. Y'all see how some of the services that we have, programs that we have, kind of overlap and dovetail with one another. For example, if you are in need of financing, you have both SBA and Ex-Im Bank to provide you that financing to support your exports, right? You have trade credit insurance, export credit insurance from the Ex-Im Bank that can protect you from non-payment by a foreign buyer overseas, either due to commercial risk or political risk. Jonathan, I'm still your thunder a little bit here. I'm gonna stop myself. Brian,
yeah, questions.
We have questions? Brian, what was that?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, Michael, stop talking. Let's get to the questions.
Wait for them to come in. Molly, did any questions come in yet?
No, not yet. Okay, wait.
Brian, I was just about to, I was about to give your program a little more love, And
Thanks. We need.
Go ahead and finish for 2 more minutes, and then we can start covering it up. We have enough time, and people can send it in grouping. So we have some coming in, but finish your thought. We got time. I got you, Brian. I got you. I love your eagerness. I love it.
I like to give Michael a hard time. I haven't seen him, so this is
exactly. He loves to give me a hard time, folks. Well, I was just going to illuminate what he said in terms of that Export MD program, Export MD grant. Take advantage of that if y'all can. I won't say it's free money, but it's a no-brainer in terms of if you're doing business internationally, if you're traveling, if you're traveling for a trade show,
Yeah, trade show. Look, I mean, we have people that spend, $30,000 easily at a trade show, and they'll get 5 back. I mean, that's still, a decent amount. And if you're a small company and you need all the money you can get, and to get you over to a big show, I mean, we have a guy who uses it for 3 shows. He walks these shows, but he uses it to go to Japan, to Germany, and then to Arab Health, all healthcare shows. So, we can talk about the different ways you can use it, but it is grant money.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then there's discounts involved too, like Brian mentioned. You can get a 2/3 discount on 2 of the U.S. commercial services per year by leveraging the grant funding from Maryland Commerce, and then it along with the SBA and exit programs, you get discounts on that as well for using them. So we all work together. Kamali, if we have any questions, happy to take them.
Yeah. All right, so got one coming in. Oh, well, okay, we'll just do one popped in the chat. This individual says we are an AI, ML, AI autonomous vehicle company, trademarked and patents pending in the US. And it's super important to protect those intellectual properties internationally. They have interest in doing business with the UAE, Sweden, and Canada. So what is that process?
So I'm sorry, can you to protect your trade?
Yeah,
patent?
intellectual properties.
Yeah, so that's really an attorney that you need. I mean, we can give you a list of attorneys that are in our Rolodex, but yeah, that's really a little too technical for what we do. We can set a meeting with my office out there, and they can tell you, give you a little bit of information on maybe what the process is, how risky it is, what the risk is. But yeah, that's an patent attorney question, way above my pay grade, way above.
If I could just add to what Brian just said too, so there's something called the Maryland District Export Council, or DEC, and the DEC has trade experts from all quarters involved, and they volunteer their time to actually provide advice and resources to Maryland exporters. That's an avenue to pursue as well, because there are 1 or 2 attorneys on the deck that can at least provide some initial guidance. So that's just another resource I wanted to mention.
Boom, I put it in the chat. Might as well do more. All right, your next question is, for some of us that are small businesses, trying to wrap our minds around going global seems like a really, intimidating thing. So what factors should we be considering when it comes to going global? Because things like culture, legal barriers, and such like that, how should we get our minds around preparing our small business to tackle that topic?
Yeah, I'll just start, Michael. I mean, that's a scary jump, and we'll meet with you and talk to you and explain the risks in each market, explain to you the cultures in each market. Again, this is why we have our contractors and Michael's folks in these countries. They can give you as much information as you need to make that decision. And the grant money is a good way to kind of lower that financial risk, so if you can get grant money, we can help take a little bit of sting out of you going to a trade show and selling your product or service, then the better. But it's a scary proposition, and you guys have to ultimately decide. But we'll make sure you get all the information you need to make that decision.
And I'll add too that I talked about market research earlier, and we have something called the country commercial guides that you can find on trade.gov that actually gives in-depth information on over 100 markets that we're in around the globe, and it kind of breaks down the business environment, the regulatory environment of each country, and then we can, if you're interested in a particular market, we can consult with you and do a joint call. Say, for example, with my counterpart in XYZ country, and they can actually give you additional information on that market.
Yeah, export.gov is an awesome website. I mean, I'm on there every day. I mean, you can spend hours looking at every different industry and all kinds of markets. It's an amazing resource.
I don't know if Jonathan or Vashta had anything to add to that one.
Yeah, we're doing all the talk.
Yes, I would just add, building on what Brian and Michael said, international business planning is really a critical piece and a great foundation to have, and maybe work with an export counselor, even at the local level. Small business development centers have export counselors, and that's a great way of identifying your strengths. Essentially, you're doing an internal analysis to determine your strengths and readiness for exporting, and then combining with that the external piece, which is identifying suitable markets where there is demand for your expertise, whether it be a product or service or skill set or intellectual property. So that's a good exercise and highly recommendable. And the SBDC at the local level can be a resource partner for your consideration.
So yes, I would definitely agree with what everyone said. You know, just to kind of close on that, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I always say, you know, if there are resources available, have those conversations. Yes, it may be nerve-wracking. Yes, it may be uncomfortable, but you know, those conversations need to be had, because, you know, even the counselor that you may be talking to, you know, for example, at the SBDC, they may kind of spark your interest in something else, another avenue that you can take still with exporting and importing. So it all takes that first initial conversation, and then like the nerves will calm down, and then you know the direction you need to have. But again, you don't know what you don't know, but you have to be willing to learn that process. So yeah, definitely take advantage of all the resources that we mentioned. And again, if your guys are looking to see, okay, how do I get an appointment with one of these people? You know, definitely shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to point you in that direction. But yeah, definitely use the resources that are available to you, because we're here to help. So yeah.
Yeah, and you know what I mean, you know, and I've worked, you know, over my career with thousands of Maryland companies, and we got companies who come to us and do very well, and we can even have you talk to one of the companies. You know, we're government officials, and you know, we can help, but you know, I've turned. We have one guy who goes to like 5 different markets. He sells medical grade keyboards and mice. It's a product, you know, a bunch of different markets. He loves talking about you know, his go-to strategy in different you know, in different markets. So I mean, we can even get you together with, you know, companies that we've worked with who can help you and really, you know, give you the you know, the information that you know, help them succeed. So we can do that as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So we have another question in the, Michael, you had one?
Well, I was just saying resources abound as
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
All right, we have another set of questions, one in the chat, but I'm gonna make this a 2-prong one because we are hitting off time. If you guys have to hop off, this is gonna be recorded. Remember, fill out that survey. I'm gonna repost it in the chat if you want the connection to this recording and the slide decks, just wink, wink. So one question is, do you provide assistance with understanding the business registration requirements for each country? And one that came in privately is, how do small businesses get ready, like wrap their mind around getting financially ready? Some businesses have to save up a certain amount of money, at least in the US, to get started, depending on what the industry is. When it comes to going global with whatever, I mean, say this person does retail. If they're trying to sell a product, how would they financially wrap their minds around getting ready for going global? That was a lot. So first question, do you provide assistance with understanding the business registration requirements for each country? Other prong, how would you get financially ready to do that?
I'll take the first one in terms of business registration requirements for each country. So a moment ago, I mentioned the country commercial guides.
Yeah.
Commercial guides, Kamali put that in the chat, trade.gov/export solutions. You can pull the country commercial guides up for each country. It'll give you detailed information about the rules and regulations about doing business or exporting to that specific market. I'll leave the financing questions up to my colleagues.
I mean, I can take it. Yes. So, I mean, we have a questionnaire that we send out, and, you know, we want to make sure that there's management buy-in. So, we get a lot of companies who want to go abroad, and the management, they're all gung ho. And then when it comes to, to financing and making that jump, they see the risk and back away. So that's a tough question. It's different for every person, what your appetite for risk is, and what the market is. So that would be sort of a one-on-one we could figure out, and maybe do some guesstimating on what it would cost. But so again, for a company to go to Arab Health, which was the biggest trade show, so actually they ended up, so our B2B service is actually $2,000 that we pay for. Okay, so these companies got $4,000 in reimbursement from the grant, plus a free $2,000 for the B2B. So we invested $6K into each company to go there. So we take a little bit of sting out of the the pocketbook, but it's a tough question. It really depends on the company and the market.
Vashti, do y'all have anything to add on that one?
So I'll just add just quickly, once again, the importance of, the SBDC, because, when they're looking at that market, you want to make sure that everything is, looking at financial projections, making sure that you've done the research as well. We see that a lot of companies, like, oh yeah, I want to tap into this, but they haven't done the research on exactly what that country does. So that's extremely important. I don't want anybody to, go into one of these conversations completely empty-handed. You have to make sure you do the research and that that, okay, this is the direction I want to go in. And also be honest with yourself as well. Be honest with, your company, how much you guys are making, how much of an impact it will make when you make that transition. So there are a lot of things that go into play, but definitely, again, like I said before, have those conversations with us, set up those meetings with us. We're always available, but just make sure you come to us with something for us to work from, and then we can go from there.
It's up to the company. I mean, again, we can help do a little bit. I mean, Michael and I can tell you how many companies think that we work for them, right? Like, we do all the work. They want us to, do everything. And we have to push back and say, look, you got to do some research on your own. You're the one who's going to be making this decision. We work for a bunch of different companies, but we do get, companies that kind of monopolize our time. And, it's up to you to do the research. We can help validate the research, but it's really up to the management to make that jump. We're here to help do that.
Do your homework first, folks.
Jonathan?
Oh, I think you covered it well with the basics. With XM, we do provide finance solutions, but that's in the case you have a foreign buyer, and most likely a purchase order, and you're maybe 1 to 2 months, you're getting ready and establishing a policy with XM, which is good for 12 months. That's the standard. So as you get closer to exploring your trade finance needs, we would be stepping in when you do have a foreign buyer and most likely a purchase order at that stage.
All right. Thank you all. All right, we are at the top of the hour. If you guys have to hop off, you can. I am actually going to ask for all 4 of our wonderful speakers to give your final thoughts. 1-minute takeaways for every small business owner here when it comes to going global. And starting in the order that you presented. All right, Michael, then John, then Vashti, and then Brian. Hit it.
Got it. Well, first and foremost, thank you again to the EDAC WVE. Kamala, you've been great. Omar and the team in the background, thank you all so much for your partnership. Thank you all for joining the webinar today, audience. Hopefully this was of value to you. One thing I want to leave with you, as you can see, there are a plethora of resources available to you, particularly if you're here in Maryland. Take advantage of the resources. One thing you heard throughout as well in terms of early stage, take advantage of the services of the Small Business Development Center Network. Number of offices throughout the state, take advantage. Leverage all these resources that you have here today. That's what I'll leave you with. Thank you.
Okay, I'm next. building on what Michael said, I do emphasize that there's a tremendous number of resources available, federal, state, and local levels. Ex-Im Bank, the MWOB division, which I'm a proud member, we are specializing in outreach to a variety of members belonging to the underserved business community, including minorities, women, and veteran-owned businesses. So if you'd like to learn more about what we do and how we fit into this ecosystem of international trade and trade finance, then please reach out. Check out the MWOB landing page. And we also have an events page. We're doing webinars throughout the year with our partners, such as U.S. Commercial Service, SBA, and the Maryland Department of Commerce. So that's another way to connect with us and keep an eye on our calendar of events. Thank you.
All right. So again, as my colleagues have said, make sure that you're using the resources, make sure you're checking the website, make sure that you are actually combing through the website, clicking those links, and just don't be, intimidated by anything. So I'll just leave you guys with 2 quotes. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start in order to be great. And success is walking from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. So just keep those in mind. Make sure you do, go, into these things, into these meetings, into these processes of these planning, with enthusiasm. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but if there's something that you really want to do, you have to make sure that you commit to it. So that's all I have. Again, if you guys have any additional questions, I'm sure that Kamalio has put my info in the chat. So feel free to send me an email and we'll definitely be able to assist you.
All right, take us away.
Is it me?
Yes. So excited.
All right, Maryland companies, hit me up if you want some advice to export. That's all I got to say. You're looking to export, you're a Maryland company, hit me up.
Wow, that was like less than a boom. All right. Thank you to all of our wonderful speakers. Thank you all for being here this February. Happy New Year. And I hope that you have a banging rest of the year full of prosperity and expansion. I'll get these all out to you within the next 2 weeks, including the recording. Again, survey if you want it. And everyone's contact is on the screen right now. And that will also be provided to you as well. Other than that, you guys rock. Stay safe.
Kamalia,
Yeah.
thanks for putting this together. This was awesome.
Sure, no problem. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Bye now.